Happy Friday, everyone, and welcome back to your favorite hospitality and events industry podcast, Two Chicks, Three Seats. We are so excited for today's episode because we have a fabulous guest with us today who just happens to be both a Tripleseat customer and a Two Chicks, Three Seats fan. We think her industry knowledge is sure to make today's episode both educational and insightful. So today we're joined by Natalie Thomas, who is the founder and events director at MTG Hospitality located in Washington, D.C. MTG Hospitality works to create meaningful event programs for unique venues in the DC area with a large portion of the business focused on selling wedding venues. So we're going to talk all about how Natalie has pivoted her business to attract weddings during COVID, what it has been like working as a wedding sales professional during the pandemic, what the Washington DC event community has been like, and more. So welcome to the show, Natalie.
Thanks, guys. This is really exciting.
We're excited to have you. Yeah, thanks for joining us. So to kick us off, how about you start by giving a little intro about your professional background so our listeners can learn a little bit about you?
Yeah, of course. So I started in the event industry just under 20 years ago. My first job was as an event coordinator at Fox Entertainment Group in the DC office. From there, I worked mostly in DC associations, kind of trade show events, PAC events, very classic DC.
Yeah.
And then 10 years ago, I went out on my own as a third-party planner, really focused on corporate events and business conferences. MTG Hospitality was born about 4 years ago when we started working directly with unique venues to create their event programs. And now I'm here talking about weddings in the pandemic.
It's just
it's a journey.
It's a whole journey. It's the event journey.
Exactly. It's an event journey.
The 2020 event journey. Well, MTG is such a unique business. We don't have many customers at Tripleseat like you guys, only a couple actually. So we're just wondering if you could tell us like a little bit about MTG and the wedding venues and clients you have been working with until COVID, and also like how you guys pivoted in what those weddings are like now.
Yeah. So, well, I like to say that the word pivot is over. It's all
okay. We're done.
Yeah.
No more pivot.
Yeah, exactly. It's adjusting. Yeah. So I'll say so MTG, we literally exactly a year ago, we were working with 4 unique venues, and I kind of will talk about each of them. So the first was actually just outside of Charlottesville. It's James Madison Montpelier. We were just starting to create their corporate event program, and then March hit. So that one is kind of in suspension. The second is it's located in Northwest DC. It's a historic museum. They had their first wedding that was a wedding venue. Okay. It was 2019 was the first year of full weddings, really great. That just took such a hit in 2020.
Right.
We really had to cancel all of them. And we're just not going to be able to continue working with them because the loss of revenue was so difficult for us to recover. So so there's, that. The third is actually the event venue space that the last event we held there was for Tripleseat customers.
That was the last one?
That was
really? Last. Oh my God, that's DuPont, right? DuPont. Yeah. My goodness, I was there. I can't believe. Oh God, I can't believe that was a year ago. That's
I'm feeling triggered now.
I'm sorry.
No joking.
True. That's the last time I was on a plane. I'm like, oh my God.
I know. Out of here. When I was thinking about it, I was like, oh wait, this is ironic.
Oh my God.
That's crazy. Needless to say, everything got canceled there. Mm-hmm. However, we have made the decision not to try to pursue trying to open that up or do events. Mm. It's also used, as you remember, for their office spaces. It's owned by a couple of DC realtor groups. Mm-hmm. It's just not worth the risk. But they are classic realtors, and what they're doing with this time is refreshing the space and doing some renovation, upgrading. So that makes me really excited and positive for when corporate events do return.
Yeah.
It was already a new space, and now.
I was going to say, it seemed really new when we were there last year. It's a beautiful space, but I can see how it would be difficult to follow regulations in a space like that. It's not very big. There's not a lot of space to space people out, I guess.
Yeah, and it's again, people work there, so it was a little unfair to try to do that to them when they still needed to go into the office.
That makes sense.
And then the beacon on the hill is the Arboretum, which is 446 acres of green space located in nowhere northeast DC. That is a USDA research facility. And somehow we were so lucky there in that we postponed all weddings for that were scheduled for 2020. 2020 was actually our first full year of weddings.
Oh,
we managed to book 12 new weddings for the fall. And in addition, we booked 40 new weddings for 2021 during the pandemic.
That's incredible.
Amazing.
Oh my goodness. Thank God for that space, huh? It's like a blessing in disguise.
I like to say, thank God for wedding business.
Yeah.
Which is, I can assure you, is something I never thought I would ever say.
As a former event planner, I can agree with that. I don't think I ever praised weddings in my entire career.
I was like, I'm a corporate business conference planner. I'm like, weddings, what? Like, now I'm like, heck yeah.
Yeah. Love. Nothing can kill love, right?
They're saying the hashtag is love is not canceled.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we were talking about that last week.
We did. Yeah, we actually did talk about that last week. I love it. Love is not canceled.
It's cute. Like, it's clever. There's, Lord knows I love a good hashtag. And
Right.
Yeah.
Aww, I love that.
Me too.
Well, so for all of these weddings that you have for 2021, what do they look like? Are they what your old weddings used to look like, or has this all evolved into a new set of offerings? We've seen on your Instagram a bunch of things that you've been posting about. So can you just explain how you've evolved and what you're offering now versus what you used to offer?
Yeah, so I'll step it back a little to kind of understand the full picture of the Arboretum. It took us about 2 years to even get a program going there, which we also never intended that to be a wedding venue.
What were you intending it? What was it going to be? What was the intention for that?
My vision was always, we're going to have corporate picnics and company picnics, staff outings for large conferences. They could have really cool, big open space parties.
That's cool. I'm making a note for when things open back up and Tripleseat has a big corporate event.
Right, I know. It's which, for the record, I'm not letting go of that vision.
Right.
And it's especially in DC, it's so hard to ignore the wedding industry.
Mm-hmm.
So we had, when we started, there's kind of the reason we were able to adjust so well, I'd say, is we actually run all of the events at the Arboretum out of the foundation, which is the Friends of the National Arboretum. And that the mission of the foundation is to obviously support the Arboretum and the research that goes on there. We also have the Washington Youth Garden that they run, which is one of 3 youth gardens in the United States. And they work with local schools to teach about garden sustainability and healthy eating, and obviously then support the local community.
Yeah.
So
awesome.
Creating a diverse program was really important to us, and we didn't want it to become just a luxury wedding site, which would be easy to do. Right. So we had started, we always say the best way to create diversity is to make things affordable and accessible. So we had a ceremony only package that was $1,000. You get access to the ground for an hour. And then we worked with local distilleries, as well as we have a few wine around us, and you can go have a beautiful ceremony and then go have a really cool casual party at a local distillery. And I don't have, as a government property, I don't have a lot of flexibility. So that works really well if you want to have food trucks I was like, great, stay here for an hour, go party elsewhere.
That's awesome.
And so much of the success we saw in the fall with the new weddings were couples who had initially seeked information about the Arboretum. When their wedding had to be postponed or canceled, they remembered that we had that small package. And then they came back to us and was like, do you still have this? I just need to, we want to get married and we'll celebrate later. Yeah. So that was interesting to see. The other thing we did really well is we had started when the pandemic hit, I was still under the delusion that by July 4th, we'll be fine.
We all were. You're not alone, Natalie.
Yeah, I know. I was like a cheerleader. I was super positive. I'm like, it's great. And when we come back, it's going to be awesome. And during that time, I worked with my marketing company, Norquist, to create a lot of SEO content for our website to boost for outdoor wedding. Like actually we just did the words we used were like outdoor venues, DC space, COVID friendly. I kept thinking that people were going to be Googling that, and we were right.
Yep.
So we were able to be able to find all these leads for people who are just stressed and, Google searching outdoor venue. When that, then on, spent a lot of time on Instagram. And the wedding planners, they're a really creative group of professionals and influencers, and they were all about the micro wedding and the Minimonies.
Yep.
And I was like, this is actually really quite genius. But then you're also like, what is an actual micro wedding?
And what's the difference, right? I feel like micro wedding, Minimony,
so we just sort of were like, we had to open up. So in DC, we had phases of openings. In phase 1, we opened, which was last summer, because we are green space, and that was part of phase 1 openings. At the time, we felt we had an obligation and a responsibility to our vendors to make sure that we could do some kind of business and help them keep going.
Right.
So we took this micro wedding idea, and I spent a lot of time talking to friends of mine at the FDA who are public health doctors to be like, what is the science of transmission? How can we actually make this work? I'm hearing outdoor venues is lower. And we decided 2.5 hours. The general rule of thumb in the beginning was the less time you're spending together, the less transmission. So we're like 2.5 hours. You're gonna have a ceremony and then a cocktail hour. At the time, I wasn't sure about seating, but we made that it just became a turnkey package. So you have a ceremony, you have a cocktail hour. It was $2,500. We had one lighting company we partnered with that provided the lighting, and then our 3 catering partners who were open, which was Occasions, RSVP, and Spilled Milk. They created sample catering menus that could all be customized, and that's what we sold.
Wow. That's cheap.
I keep telling people it's also, so in 2021, we're booking a lot of those.
Yeah.
Because couples who had just got engaged and started their wedding planning at the beginning of the pandemic saw their friends going through so much. And we're like, oh, I'm not going to do that. Let's just make this small and easy. Our normal rental is near like $10,000. And
right.
you have actually a beautiful wedding now at the Arboretum for less than that in full.
That's amazing. That's absolutely amazing to have a wedding for less than 10 grand, a gorgeous wedding at that, in a classy wedding for less than $10,000 in 2020, 2021 is absolutely incredible. I mean, I thought I did a really good job back in 2015, and I spent $22,000 completely on everything, dress, everything, which I was like, nice job, Kate, right? But that's absolutely, I mean, I was looking on your website, and these are some of the most beautiful weddings I've ever seen in my entire life. So definitely not, I mean, affordable, but not skimping on anything, I feel like. So, except for maybe the size of the wedding, which in the end doesn't matter anyway. So, so what has the feedback been like from your wedding clients? Many clients, as you just said, are going for the smaller ceremony packages. Are they planning larger gatherings down the line, or is this like, this is it? This is, this smaller ceremony, smaller wedding is enough for them, which, I mean, I think it's amazing. So I don't see why anything else would be necessary, but.
Yeah. Well, the feedback from the clients, look, they were really happy. There was like all 12 of them last fall, they had rescheduled at least like twice. And for them, it was, I would say like, they were thankful that they could find something that made them feel very safe and comfortable, that their parents could come to. That was the biggest concern we saw a lot of the time, is they didn't want to get married without their family present, which is understandable. So that was a lot of them, like some of them actually had planned to like marry now, celebrate later, and they're not going to do the celebration because they just really enjoyed that experience.
Right.
So, which again makes sense to me, but it's been nice to see. And we're seeing so many more people book these smaller weddings. again, they're seeing their friends go through this. They don't want to have those same struggles. And again, the affordability of it, it's just smart. And my favorite what people are doing is like, still keeping the budget they had, but just elevating their food and beverage or elevating their decor. My personal favorite was Edward and Jamie got married last year. That was their second rescheduling. They just took their wedding budget and decreased their count to 50 and brought in a mini grand piano into our water pond area. And it was absolutely stunning.
I'm looking at pictures right now. Everyone needs to go to mtghospitality.com/events and go to real weddings and click on their wedding.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous. Yeah.
And, I joke a lot of the time that was those type of elaborate designs at the Arboretum. Sometimes I never really loved it. We are public space, so the setup for that is always difficult to manage. But with the smaller weddings, you can start with a later start time, and gosh, it looks gorgeous. And now I want everyone to have a mini grand piano.
I don't blame you.
Yeah, and I will never complain about setup ever again.
So obviously you guys have seen success with these micro weddings or Minimonies. Are you going to continue? I know you said you've booked them into 2021. Is this something that you think you'll continue moving forward?
Yeah, I'm actually going to expand it. So the micro weddings I did in the fall were just cocktail hour. Now, and look, a lot of people ask me, they're like, why were you only allowing cocktail hour? It's the clear answer is because I didn't know. I didn't know if it was really safe to have people seating. I have so much space. I could do 6 feet distance with a cocktail hour. Right. Now, we have a lot more information. So the micro wedding has changed to you can do a cocktail hour or a dinner service. Wow. And so we're doing these like 2.5 hours, beautiful, intimate, small. I'm going to start trying to create an elopement package. We have a lot of people who want to self-officiate. And that doesn't make any sense with the current packages we have. And again, because the reality is we're going to still see confusion on social gathering guidelines. And that makes it really hard for someone to plan. Right. But a lot of these couples just want to move forward, get married. And if we can offer and be as flexible as possible, I'd like to try to help out in that way. And again, we see a lot of people requesting elopements. Yeah.
Right. That makes sense. I mean, it's tough because I feel like even the deeper we get into this pandemic, even though now it feels like maybe it like an end is in sight, at least it's still like, I think like there's less like, no, you know what I mean? There's less like, it gets more confusing. It doesn't get easier because it's like, oh no, like, vaccinations are going to make it, are going to make everything great. But then it's like, well, is that really the case? Or are we still going to have to wait even longer? We just don't know. I mean, I feel like it's at this point, there's less no.
Okay, so I kind of agree a little bit, disagree in that for a year, because we can say that now, I was sort of going with the, fine is the new fabulous. I will say though now, I do feel really positive about this year. The rate, like getting the delivery of vaccines is so encouraging. As a matter of fact, my parents are actually getting their first dose today.
Oh, yay. That's big news.
Right? I know, like it just, once you start getting like people, it's feels really good. I think spring will be fine. Summer is really going to be great with lower transmissions. Sure, the fall is going to be a little tricky. We don't know how variants will work. And do I think we can still do events safely? Absolutely. Yeah. But if you are trying to do a 300-person wedding, it's just a stress on you as trying to plan that. Yeah. That there's nothing I can do to ease that. But if you do a 50-person small, intimate, gorgeous event, that's great. Yeah.
At least you have it covered for now with the setup that you have and the Minimonies and what you've been doing. So that's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, it must be fun too. I know that you love to, like, you've always like done a lot of corporate events and big, large, these huge, probably multi-day conferences and all these things. But this must be fun. I just feel like I'm looking at more in the pictures now and there's like a mariachi band and like, it looks like so much fun. Like it must be so fun to plan these and to like execute them and to see them come to life. I can imagine that it's awesome.
Well, from a planning side, we don't really do the planning. It's interesting, actually. We always, for all weddings, we require a wedding planner, or at least a coordinator. For the micro weddings and the smaller, I waived those, just because, again, it was such a turnkey package, and the affordability of it, and adding a planner that, I loved when they did have a planner for those micro.
Of course.
Let me be clear. But it was really fun to see how people were using the space and what we offered. And I'll be honest, I also really loved that I wasn't there till 1 a.m.
Well, I don't blame you on that.
Yeah, I was like, wow, this is great. Like, how am I going to ever go back to?
Micro weddings are staying forever.
I loved everything about how comfortable people felt there, the outdoor space. And we've always considered the Arboretum, it's still a hidden gem. Like, unless you live on the hill, you're not really aware of it. And these wedding programs have really brought it more out and, brought it more into the community.
Yeah.
And it was nice during this time to see people smile and be happy and, give them that kind of a memorable experience that we really strive for.
Oh God, I cannot wait for events. Like we're hoping. So it's funny because earlier you said that a year ago was our event, and I did actually realize that we just set up a remote event, just like the one we did in DuPont Circle, but this one is remote and for all of our customers, not just DC, obviously. And it's next week. And we realized that the dates were like basically the same date that we did the last one, which was at your venue in DC. And I'm like, and then we were like, oh God, I hope we can do like live. Like we're shooting for like September or October to be like the first like back live Tripleseat University event. And I'm just like, so I'm hopeful, optimistic, as you said.
No, I can't wait to just move around classroom tables. Like before, I was like, God, this is a pain. And now I'm like, oh my God, give me that floor plan and I can't wait.
That's so funny. I just want to set up AV and move around classroom tables.
It's like, I don't even know, like, do I still know how to move tables and chairs?
Oh, that's really funny, but understandable as well.
What a year it's been.
I know.
An understatement.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, moving on, what has the Washington, D.C. hospitality community been like throughout the pandemic? You were saying, the guidelines, how has that been playing out? Has the communication been good? Have you been communicating with other wedding venues, other venues in general? Have you felt like a support system around you? Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I gotta, so DC has been really quite incredible. The community, so it's called DC Event Coalition, and it was created by a couple of event vendors that came together, especially early on in the pandemic, got us all as a community and started having like weekly calls. And those calls were with like the deputy mayor's office, with public health officials that were on the task force and the mayors, who was like giving us live updates, explaining transmission rates. That was really incredible. And it was also a great, they were kind of combining all of the social gathering regulations and restrictions and helping us interpret them. And I have to give mad props to Lynn from Bond Events. She was one of the founders of this coalition. She then kind of took all the venues and we kind of called it a therapy group. And we're actually meeting again this week, just via Zoom. And that was so incredibly helpful because it was not recorded, all, confidential, and we could just talk and be like, how are you handling things? How are you handling sensitive topics like refunds? What are you currently doing? Are you even open? And it was helpful too, for those of us who were open, we're booked, we could, give them to someone who still had space, or for a lot of our venue friends who were not able to open, but they still wanted to help out their couples, they were able to refer them over to those of us who had outdoor space that were open. It was really incredible to watch, and It continues to be amazing, and they've been a real great advocate. They did a really cool thing on the Hill that was called the Silent Event, trying to show the impact. I'd say like the biggest thing, people sort of forget how much of an impact hospitality has on the economy, especially in DC. We've estimated it's, $1 billion tax revenue. You want to look at DC and say it's about politicians and Congress and government. Sure, but when you come to DC to advocate, that's still an event, and that's still a conference, and that still requires hotel rooms, meeting space, event space, restaurant dining. And there is a part of us that has felt like, you see us? We used to always say like hospitality was recession proof, but we are not pandemic proof.
No, definitely not. And it's like that. I mean, I feel like that has been something that we've heard from a lot of our customers across the country, really, like from New York, Boston, and then all the way like in LA. We've heard customers talk about that. Vegas was a big one where they were like, hello. It's so true. I mean, hospitality everywhere is like one of those things that like you don't realize how important or vital or even like necessary for like living that it is, and like for thriving, until you don't have it, and then it's like, oh my God.
Yeah, it's funny you bring up Vegas. So I'm on the board of our local chapter of MPI, Meeting Planning International, Planners International, and our current president works for Las Vegas CVB. And I was just chatting with her about Las Vegas, and you sort of think Las Vegas, like you go to gambling, you go to the concerts, like, you're going there for a conference, and then you schedule everything else around it. Like, I used to do a trade show there every year, and of course I would make sure I had time to go see Britney. But I was not going to go fly to Vegas to go just see Britney.
Right. It's so true. I've been to Vegas 3 times, and one time was not for like work or a conference, and it was because I was with somebody who was at a conference. So really it was. But yeah, that's so true. And yeah, it's what you said, like it just, I don't know, it hurts. It hurts. It's like one of those things where you're like, oh man. Especially in a place like DC, because you're surrounded by government, right? So, we don't have to dive too deep into that.
Yeah, I know. I was like, yeah.
Yep. Well, it's nice that you guys have that support system though, too, because I mean, I think that what this pandemic really has showed the hospitality industry is that we are like a big family. And even those that like were your competitors are your family. And it's been amazing to see everyone helping each other and being there for each other, and holding each other up. So I think that's what should come out of this for sure.
Yeah, I will say like it's that whole, community over competition.
Yeah.
And it's been nice. Like I can't wait to see these people in person, because I've only seen them on Zoom. It's, or if you see them, they're like, we're going to be in mask. I'm like, I don't know who you are, but we've been besties for like a year.
Yeah. New friends. That's awesome. We've actually hired quite a few people throughout the year, and I haven't met any of them in person, but I feel like I know them. Because you're like talking every day on Zoom, and it's like, my God, we haven't met in person. That's so weird. It doesn't even feel like that.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier, like about some of the caterers that you worked with, and like, can you talk about maybe some of the other partners or the caterers and, that you work with now, and how it has been navigating the pandemic together while working?
Yeah, our caterers are our biggest and strongest partners, and they also really helped me create this event program at the Arboretum. It's been great and supportive network. Figuring out, like, there was a lot of questions about food service. So that's been, there's been hours of conversations about that. And more importantly, it's been how do you get back to work? And that was something that was really helpful with our vendor partners, particularly our caterers. It's been more interesting with a lot of our DJs do lighting. So they've at least like done a lot of the lighting. I haven't we haven't really had, yeah, I was gonna say they would be the least, they're in the toughest spot because everything they provide is you can't really social distance.
Right.
Right.
It's true.
The whole point of a DJ is,
Bring people together.
Dancing.
yeah, it's literally,
Yeah. Never thought
but
of
yeah,
that.
it's been great. Like our catering partners, particularly Occasions, is doing a lot for like giveaways to healthcare workers.
Oh, that's
Right
awesome.
now, I think it actually is closed. They are doing a giveaway to a healthcare worker to have a micro wedding.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so that's been really lovely to see.
Mhm.
RSVP Catering, they've been doing just a lot of like meal drop-offs.
Mm.
And Spilled Milk, who's done most of our micro weddings, and they've just kind of really dominated the intimate small wedding market.
I was looking at Spilled Milk's website earlier, and it was really, their food looks really fun and like, you know, it's like pretty. Everything's so pretty.
I kept joking, like they were not helping with my COVID weight gain.
I can't imagine they would be, because their food looked amazing.
And I'm plant-based, so each wedding he brought like this new plant-based appetizer they had, and oh my gosh, like I never was into the fake meat stuff.
Right.
But they do this like Beyond, was it the Beyond Meat
Beyond Burger,
slider that was vegan, and it had like barbecue sauce. Oh, it was like,
oh, that sounds good.
yeah.
You sent us attachments of your packages yesterday, like right around lunchtime, and I was like, I'm hungry now.
It's, you know, it's the most interesting part is, so when we first started, as I mentioned, with the ceremony only program, we had a hard time figuring out, because I don't have infrastructure at the Arboretum, so it's not like you can drop off chairs. And so the expense of delivery with very short windows of time is expensive.
Yeah.
And it was hard to figure out how you make this affordable and provide chairs. So we sort of were like, this has to be standing only. And when we tried to create a package of like bites and champagne toast and chairs, it was hard to make that affordable, as well as like a good business sense for the caterer. With the pandemic now, it's kind of more keeping things going. And I sent you guys, Occasions created this wonderful Minimonies package that's just like champagne and bites and chairs. And it's so perfect because you can have this really lovely ceremony, and then you can sip champagne in like the herb garden or at the columns of the Arboretum. And who doesn't want to do that?
That sounds amazing. I want to do that right now.
I was like, what time is it?
Seriously, what's the weather like there right now? Because it's 10 degrees here. So it was 40 degrees here yesterday, and I was like, I'm gonna go to the beach. That sounds, oh my God, sipping champagne in the herb garden with little delicious bites of food. Wow. Yeah.
Yes. So a lot of I actually found, my entire spring, they're all micro weddings and Minimonies. Most of them actually ended up upgrading to the micro weddings. I mean, the power of Instagram it's real. And because they were seeing these images and they're like, wait, why don't I just add on 2 hours? And then those who are doing the ceremony only and go into a restaurant afterwards, they're all like, you know what, why not? I'll have a glass of champagne. Sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a pandemic. Like if you ever need.
Well, we talked a little bit about this before, but just wanted to bring it up again because, you know, you guys are doing so much right now. What do you predict the near future and later future of 2021 to look like based on, you know, what you have booked and what you've seen?
I predict intimate weddings are here to stay. And I kind of love that it's been destigmatized. Before, it was always you have to have these like large gatherings. People are really embracing and cherishing. I think we've learned so much about ourselves in the pandemic and our priorities, and people really embracing these small, intimate, and spending time with people they feel safe, comfortable, and really want to see. And that, I think the challenging part is going to be how we as a wedding industry, we can't sustain an event program on just small weddings after small weddings. At some point, we are revenue generators. So I think that is going to be kind of an interesting trend to see how we do that.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. But yeah, I think it's going to be these micro weddings, Minimonies. I do have large weddings on the books for the fall, and I'm still getting leads for people who are seeking a 300 person event because they feel more comfortable being outdoors.
Yep.
It kind of, sometimes it's hard to wrap my head around it, where I have some fall looking to postpone, and then at the same time I'm like, they're like, can you fit 300 people? I'm like, wait, oh,
It's
yeah,
all over the place.
I know, right? It's like whiplash constantly. I'm like, can I? Absolutely, but can I? I don't know.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
We'll find out.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be nice to see, like, there really isn't a one stop, if we could have percentage capacities, that would be incredibly helpful.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not in the business of predicting, nor do I ever plan to, but it's also what's making us as event planners insane.
Yeah,
Because,
right.
we thrive in organization, not chaos.
Yes. That's why we created Tripleseat.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like we said before, like I do agree with you that I do think that the summer and early fall is looking good for for events. It's just so like, it's like, like everyone may feel comfortable, but what are the regulations going to be? And state to state, town to town, city to city, it's always different. It's ever changing. I mean, I live in New Hampshire, and you can have a 200 person wedding right now in New Hampshire, which is that's not, I mean, and then like I live on the border of New Hampshire and Massachusetts, and right over the border, it's like 50 people. Like, what's the difference?
Yeah, the inconsistencies are a little mind-boggling.
Mm-hmm, for sure.
But it's, as I said, the nice part with, we're all coming together as an industry and venues here in DC to try to figure it out.
Yeah, that's important.
I mean, it's,
Your crystal ball.
You saw in Virginia, they limited social gathering to 25, but concerts can have 1,000.
Right. That's the other thing.
Nothing makes sense.
They're opening concert venues in Massachusetts, and for Bruins games or hockey games and all, and football games and baseball games. And it's like, well, what's the difference?
Yeah. And it's so, like, we looked at it, and we're just trying to kind of keep everything like in terms of the data. Mm-hmm. And we did an economic analysis on an Arboretum wedding. And again, going back to like where we always thought weddings were just like, but it's not just about someone's like this moment in life for them. It's a massive revenue generator. Mm-hmm. You have the venue, you have the caterer, you have florists, you have DJs, you have lighting companies, you have AV, limo companies, you have wedding planners. This has a massive economic impact. Absolutely. And more importantly, these are mostly small businesses, local and women-owned businesses, mm-hmm. that are being negatively impacted.
Yeah, that's something I actually never thought about, how overwhelmingly like these businesses are owned by women, like catering companies and flowers, and like, oh, that's crazy. I never really thought of that. And it is, you're so right. I mean, you guys are doing the opposite of what I'm about to say, but normally when a vendor hears wedding, it's like, oh, well, that's $500 more than the other package because it's a wedding.
Yeah, I know. It's like, I was always really confused when we got into the wedding industry, mm-hmm. and people were like, oh, like people would send you leads saying like, I don't want to admit it's a wedding because you're going to charge me more. I'm like, why is this? Like, it's because you're
stigma. Yeah.
Like, it's not a corporate event doesn't have the kind of setup a wedding does.
No, it's completely different. The flower, yeah. I mean, flowers, like normally, I mean, maybe some like shrubbery or something to like for the stage. I don't know, but yeah, it is that mindset was always so funny to me. Like people are like, well, I'm not going to tell them it's a wedding because then they're going to charge me, double for my flowers. I'm like, well, what corporate event is having bouquets made?
You're not building out like the whole arch and like florals on her like tent top, like
right. Yeah, I don't know. I'd like to go to that corporate event, but
Yeah, again, like, want to do it, cool, go for it.
Right. That's funny. Let's see, what else, Rachel? Do we have any more questions for Natalie? I feel like
I mean, we could end on this wedding trends question. I feel like we've definitely covered it, and the whole intimate weddings as a whole, I think, is a wedding trend that you've made clear that you like. Are there any other things that you have been loving specifically of wedding trends that you think will stay as we move back into like larger weddings once again?
Oh, that will
Mini
stay
grand
back
pianos.
into larger weddings.
And
Gosh,
grand
that's
pianos.
No, it's like, I don't want to think about large weddings. I was like, I'm not sure if I'm prepared. Like,
A triggering question.
I know. So I'm like, guys, trigger. Come on. It's a month. It's a year. It's March.
I do like the idea, like even for like 200 people weddings, like just doing that like standing cocktail reception type situation. I feel like that's
Mhm.
something I should have done that because no one ate the food at my wedding. I mean, it was good, but like we're partiers. We partied.
Yeah. Like, look, it's, I love etiquette and manners, but what I do, a trend that I'm not mad if it stays is norms have gone out the window. Like before, it used to be so tacky to tell someone you can't come anymore or like invite them last minute.
E-list.
Yeah, like it was, that's become quite acceptable. And yeah, I'm with you, Kate, like standing only cocktail hour with like heavy hors d'oeuvres, walk around and then just party and dance.
Right. It's awesome.
Yeah. You no longer have to follow this idea of like, you have a ceremony, then you have a cocktail hour, then you have a seated dinner, and then you dance.
Right.
Now
And
it's,
yeah, anything goes, right? I mean, you're right. The creativity, I feel like, is something that I hope and I think at this point will continue on moving forward. And maybe you have one table for like the older folks in your family or something. Isn't that why we do it anyway? Like that's why the sit down thing is a thing. It's because Nana can't stand the whole time.
yeah.
You need a seat for Nana.
What are weddings going to be like when I get married? I wonder.
Oh, Rachel, I don't know.
They can be whatever you want, Rachel.
Exactly. That's what Natalie's saying.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, if you don't get married at the Arboretum, I'm going to be pissed. Get to DC.
Yeah.
It's on my list for the wedding that I have no plans for anytime soon.
It's okay.
You can even just do a party to celebrate being single. I can figure this out.
Oh my God,
Honestly.
amazing. We're going to have a Tripleseat party there. I can already feel it. It's happening. I don't know. We're going to do it.
Yeah. We'll figure it out. That's
figure it out.
That's been the entire theme the past year is, I don't know, I'll figure it out.
And I think that's what we should end on. That's the trend moving forward. It's just, we'll do it. We'll figure it out. We're moving forward. It's going to be fun. It's going to be creative.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well,
it.
yeah, that was awesome. Thank you so much for joining us, Natalie. It was really great to have you on. And like I said before, Rachel and I have been stalking your Instagram posts and, your website's beautiful. And you guys are just doing such amazing events and, holding it through the pandemic.
I love it. Yeah. I love a good Insta stock and slide into my DMs.
We love to tell our our listeners and our customers especially like how important social media is, especially right now, and you've definitely shown that with your account and you were talking about doing like research with the SEO, words and hashtags to use, and it's things that some of our customers and other venues and companies don't do enough of or at all. So I think it just goes to show the importance of that and that it works.
You can't just do one. You have to do all of them
both.
combined.
Mhm.
Yeah, so true. So true. Well, everyone should check out MTG Hospitality on Instagram at MTG Hospitality and online at mtghospitality.com. And thanks again for being a listener, Natalie. We love that you listen to the podcast and also for coming on and talking to us today. It was awesome.
Yeah, again, thanks for having me. This was super fun. We should totally do it again.
We will.
We'd love to.
Well, we're going to do a follow-up. We didn't tell you yet, but yes, that's happening in the fall.